Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here with episode number 10 of the K2N vlog. This week we're going to go over some general boat maintenance with our big boats here in Lake Hernando, Florida. Cleaning of the Dragon boat and the OC6, as well as renewing some of the varnish on the exposed wood in the Dragon boat and touch-up paint on the OC6. In a club organization, there is a lot of ongoing maintenance and repairs that we go through in order to keep the boats operational, both with the big boats and with the smaller boat. Having the individual capacity to do small repairs is a super simplistic skill that everyone should have in order to keep their vessel lifespan going for longer. All the vessels are materials that are put together, right? And you are able to take away these materials and add to these materials. You have gel coat, you have paint, you have epoxy, you have carbon fiber, you have fiberglass. These are all things that you can purchase, right? And you can use these components and add them back to a vessel. At first, it's kind of a scary process. It's almost like seeing a surgery for the first time. But when you break it down, as long as you're being patient and you have a systematic process in which you're going through, the overall repairs will come out well. If you are trying to rush them, cosmetically, they usually won't look great, but structurally, they should last. And there are different severities of damage that vessels will have. Some of it is just wear and tear over a period of time, so just trying to get a little more shine back in your paint, versus a vessel that has fallen off a roof rack and has been run over is a totally different scenario. I remember with the first paddleboard that I owned, I had damaged it within 2 weeks of owning it. I was holding it and I turned and I hit a stop sign. I had just this superficial ding on the side, but I felt like the world was going to end because I didn't understand what the process was in repairing that, if it was even possible to repair. Will it ever be the same again? I was just so upset. But that opened the door for me to understand surfboard repair kits and going down the entire rabbit hole of how vessels and fiberglass work is done in general. And so at that point, those are just my individual fleet boats, all my personal boats. But as that has expanded into the club dynamic, this ability and skill set has evolved in order to keep the club operational. Taking vessels that are highly damaged, repairing them and getting them on the water is one of our gateways to getting new paddlers on the water in the most economical way. The general large boats sit in the sun or under some level of protected shade, but they're outside all the time. So there is that ongoing maintenance. Fortunately for us, it only seems to be an annual thing, which you'll see later with the footage in the video. Semi-annual, depending on how much rain we have. But even with the big boats, all of the components of the dolly systems that we use, all of the components that go into it, the oar lock, the oar on the Dragon boat, all of the exposed wood, the Yakus on the OC6, the AMA, the paint, any damage, these are all little things that can quickly add up. Not having the skill in-house means that you have to seek it from outside sources, and most of the time it is incredibly expensive. But for us, the more important factor is timeliness. Having a boat go out of operation for 4 to 8 weeks for a minor repair is not something we can even consider when it can be done in a few days if we figure out how to do it. The other major aspect with maintenance is understanding that boats can be damaged, they can be fixed, and they still operate and function. Many paddlers that own a vessel were just like me with my first paddleboard, where it's inconceivable for it to be damaged or to be hurt. And this also closes the door for loaning this boat to somebody, getting somebody to use a vessel if they were to flip it and they climb in and their paddle whacks the side of it and puts damage into it. This closes the door for new paddlers having the opportunity to try the sport. As a club owner, I've had to come to terms that all of this equipment could be destroyed the next time the next person takes it out, and that is a consequence that I have come to terms with. We have been fortunate where nothing like that has happened yet, but you need to prepare for the worst. The major gateway for paddlers to enter into the sport is the opportunity just to try these vessels. If you remove that first step into the sport, there is almost nobody that is going to just go out and buy a high ticket item and try it. And I shouldn't say almost nobody, but it is a very low % chance, and we can all look around and the community at large is relatively small depending on your geographical location. And you may have just jumped out and bought a surf ski because you saw it on the internet and thought it was cool and an upgrade to your touring kayak, but there's not 10,000 people that are willing to do that. But there would be 10,000 people that are willing to try a boat for free just to see if they like it. And then a smaller percentage of that would take the jump and commit their life to the sport potentially. So it all starts with that first spark, and it also starts with understanding that that vessel could be damaged as they are going through this process. For me, having a ding in a vessel is a story of how somebody started in the sport, and it is always something that I am willing to trade off for a cosmetic blemish for somebody's renewed spark in the sport. If I couldn't come to terms with that, I would have the prettiest boat sitting in the garage and I would be here at Lake Hernando by myself. But it is a concept to keep in mind, right? If you are trying to grow paddling in your area, finding a way to meet in the middle with loaning out vessels that are willing to be damaged and that can be repaired is the key. It doesn't mean you have to take your boat and destroy it, but there is some sort of a middle ground in loaning out a boat and being comfortable with it. And for me, the middle ground is I don't like giving my boats away to people. In this context, I load the boat, I unload the boat, I rig them, I put them in the water, then they sit in it. So the chances of them damaging it is super low because it's a very controlled environment. Versus if you ask to come to my house, come in my garage, load the boat, I don't like any of that because the chances of it hitting my garage door, the side of my house, or you dropping it, or all these things can now damage it, and I don't like that. So again, even for me, there are lines in the sand that I'm going to draw in order to keep the success rate very high on getting the vessels to the water undamaged. Once somebody's in the water, right? Again, if the paddle strikes the side of the hull, I have come to terms with whatever they can attempt to do to it, I can repair it, and it's worth it for me to try and get them interested in the sport. If I'm not willing to do this, nobody else is going to, and it's not going to grow in this area. Maintenance, all coming full circle to try and help build the sport around the world. There is a lot of information on YouTube on true repairs and true maintenance of fiberglass and carbon fiber boats. The footage here is not a real tutorial on how to apply paint or apply varnish. I do it like a Neanderthal, but I'll go through some of the process that I do. We actually painted our OC6. There was major damage on the bottom. We cut into the boat, put in some filler to reshape the bottom, as well as put another layer of carbon fiber on the bottom to seal that all up. I think it was like a 5-foot section of the boat, which was totally horrifying to cut into and redo, but that was one of the biggest surgeries that we've had to do. And at the same time, we painted the entire boat the blue that you see. I'll try to find the old red and white that we have for contrast. And I'll also show the process of putting on the varnish on the wood, which is kind of like painting with syrup on the wood. If you guys have any tips or application processes that you do or would like to share, please do so here in the comments. You can shoot me an email. Thank you all so much for checking out the vlog, and we'll see you all next week for episode number 11. All right, everybody, welcome back to Lake Hernando. So this is our little boat yard, and you can see the boat is a little gross. We leave the dragon boat on this dolly all the time, so it's tilted to the side, so when it rains, water collects on that end, so that algae kind of builds up, and it's been getting pretty gross. We've had some hurricanes and whatnot coming through Florida, a lot of rainfall, so it's time to pressure wash. So I got this gas-powered pressure washer. One of the club members let me borrow it. It has the ability and strength to blow off some of the old varnish, but for the most part, I'm just trying to get the algae and dirt off of the hull. So you can see on the inside here, blowing away all that algae. On the outside of the boat, it's not actually paint. It is a giant sticker, and it is incredibly hard to actually clean, so the pressure washer doesn't do a good job knocking off much off of the sticker on the side. Admittedly, it doesn't get very dirty either, but it's not very brilliant on the outside. So it's not paint on the outside, because that would be easy to kind of, go over and work with. So I have the camera set up, and then I have the forehead camera as well. Kind of fun going through the different footages and splicing it together for you all to watch here. And I've been meaning to do something like this for a while, so 2 birds with 1 stone with the editing process, as well as going through and cleaning the boat. So the pressure washer is great. Like I said, it blows off some of the loose paint, and I'm planning on painting the inside of this hull in this video. I say that I'm going to do touch-up paint with the blue OC6 on the side, and I actually didn't have time. If you're watching this on the day of the release, I did the footage in the second half of the video this morning. So I've come home, now I'm editing it right now. So moving a dragon boat by myself, very difficult. I always joke I need a pair of cleats because it's so heavy, it's hard to get traction. The Dragon boat is around 600 or 700 pounds. The OC6 we have is 400 pounds. You can see that algae built up there. My feet slipped on that algae and I fell out of my seat, and I was like, you know what, it's time to clean the boat. So I mentioned that this boat is carbon fiber, and believe it or not, it is double-walled, thick braided or thick weaved carbon fiber. Like, we cut this boat open and it's all carbon fiber. It's black. We were pretty sure it was fiberglass because of the weight. So it still meets the weight capacity. It's just 400 pounds worth of carbon fiber. So it's kind of an incredible boat. It's very stiff as a consequence. It's highly durable because of all the extra material. So going through, getting all that algae out, it blows out real simple with the pressure washer. And if you try to use, you know, a sponge or your arms, it's an all-day process. I have the Dragon boat oar to tilt the boat to the side so I can reach on the inside here and get the pressure washer working. I am very, very short, so I can't reach up and get into the boat while it's tilted the opposite direction. So going through here, finishing up with the AMA. So this is all the maintenance that I've done on the OC6. Like I said, we're not going to do the touch-up paint in this video. I just ran out of time, but for the most part, looks real good. You can see some of that paint blowing off on the side, and it's just a matter of sanding it to prepare it for new paint. I use rubbing alcohol. I think I have some acetone actually to put on there, and then, you know, just applying new paint. I use a little roller. Sometimes I'll use a brush, but I have extra rollers right now. I'm more than likely going to paint the inside of the OC6 at some point. So this was the big project today, was so the cleaning of the inside with pressure washer, step 1. Step 2 is now sanding all of it. So the varnish that's on there isn't super worn in 90% of it. There's one bench seat that I kind of skip over. And so all we're doing here is prepping this with 180 grit in order to adhere new varnish to the old varnish that is already pre-existing, right? So it's in place, it's fading a little bit in spots, and so it's time to just kind of, you know, add another layer of protection there. I only do one layer within the video today, but the sanding process is a pain in the butt. There's one bench seat that I do need power tools to go through and blow off all of the varnish because it has worn away. I think it's in more direct sunlight than some of the other seats, or I didn't apply it well the last time. But yep, by hand, just got my little hand sander, switching out 180 grit sandpaper and just going to town here. Sanding every bit of exposed wood front to back. This took me about an hour of footage. I was going to wear the head mount again, but having my safety gear on, my little ventilator, it's a great investment if you're planning on doing boat work all the time. So at this point, I'm trying to decide if I'm actually going to paint the boat, right? I have a little extra time. It's like, this doesn't take too long. So I'm just using a chip brush just to put this in here and just to see how long is this going to take? Is this going in well? I'm using what's called a tread paint, which is like a boat deck paint. So it's got sand in there and it goes on so easily, right? It doesn't really goop up. It spreads evenly because of the sand and the thickness in there. And I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. So on a whim, I decide after prepping the inside and cleaning the inside, I'm gonna use the roller and I'm gonna go front to back and paint the entire boat. I didn't get all of that footage, and so this is me after painting the entirety of the inside, going to the varnish. I'm using Minwax Helmsman. It's always such a weird name, I forget, but Minwax is the brand and Helmsman is the name. And this is after another hour of doing the varnish on the outside. I am exhausted. So here's a little side-by-side of a before and after. You can see all the gross green algae on the left. You can see the paint on the right side being renewed and it looks much smoother. All the seats are much brighter because of the gloss varnish. There's some parts there. That seat right there is one I got to go back and do in the future. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining me out here at Lake Hernando doing a little boat maintenance. Thank you all so much for checking out the series. If there's anything you'd like to see us do on the channel, feel free to comment. If you are a woodworking master and you have tips for me, please share them. Thank you all so much again. See you at the next vlog episode.